Nigel Farage's unrelenting resolve has become a force to reckon with in British politics, making his rise impossible to ignore. Whether you love him or loathe him, he has mastered the art of seizing control in every debate, every interview, and every conversation. His recent appearance on the BBC proved why he's become such a polarizing figure, unapologetically direct, armed with facts, and completely undeterred by pushback. It's not just about whether his points are popular or palatable, it's about the sheer clarity of his convictions in a political era riddled with ambiguity and evasion. Farage isn't tiptoeing around the issues. During that interview, he didn't mince words. The UK is facing a population explosion, he said, and it's straining the country's infrastructure, housing, and public services. A migrant a minute arriving in Britain, a statistic that ignited immediate debate, is the kind of blunt, headline-grabbing statement that forces the public to sit up and listen. Critics pounce on such assertions, accusing him of stoking fear, but Farage doesn't flinch. He doubles down, presenting data to back his claims and challenging anyone to prove him wrong. That confidence, that refusal to retreat, is exactly what sets him apart. He's not afraid to venture into territory where others falter, and that's why he's capturing the attention of voters who feel ignored by the mainstream parties. For Farage, it's not enough to point out problems, he's framing them in ways that resonate with people on the ground. Talk of GDP growth means little when wages stagnate and living standards decline. While the government touts economic progress, Farage focuses on GDP per capita, bluntly stating, the national cake might be bigger, but your slice is getting smaller. It's this ability to cut through political jargon and touch on real frustrations that's resonating with a growing number of Britons. Many see him as the only one willing to address the elephant in the room, the strain of mass migration on a country already grappling with housing shortages, stretched healthcare, and skyrocketing rents. What's striking is how Farage handles the inevitable backlash. When BBC presenter Noga Munchety challenged him on his immigration figures, she was met with the full force of his preparation. He didn't stutter, didn't hedge, he simply laid out the numbers. 2.5 million people have come to Britain over the past 2 years, he said, with 52% arriving as dependents. Children don't work, he noted sharply, driving home his point that the influx isn't easing the labour shortage but instead worsening the economic strain. Munchety pushed back hard, questioning his sources, his intent, even his memory of Brexit promises. But Farage didn't just hold his ground, he flipped the conversation, turning her challenges into opportunities to reinforce his message. The segment wasn't just a clash of facts, it was a clash of political styles. Munchety, representing the cautious skepticism of the mainstream, tried to trip Farage up with pointed questions and interruptions. But Farage's calm, measured responses made her frustration all the more visible. By the end, it felt less like she was in control and more like she had walked into his trap. Viewers couldn't help but notice the contrast, Munchety's agitation versus Farage's unshakable composure. It's moments like these that explain why Farage continues to gain ground, even in a political environment that often seems stacked against him. Farage's critics dismiss him as a fearmonger, but his supporters see him as a truth-teller in a world of political doublespeak. He doesn't shy away from tough topics, whether it's immigration, welfare reform, or the failures of Brexit governance. On welfare, he's unapologetic. The system, as it stands, traps people. You work more than 16 hours a week, the tax kicks in, and you may as well stay on benefits, he says. It's not just a critique, it's a condemnation of a political class that refuses to tackle systemic issues. Farage's willingness to challenge the orthodoxy, on welfare, on tax policy, on the role of government, sets him apart from career politicians who seem more concerned with playing it safe than solving problems. That's why Farage Reform UK is gaining momentum. Membership is surging, and polls show the party climbing steadily, even outpacing Labour in some local areas. This isn't just about dissatisfaction with the Conservatives, it's about a deeper frustration with the entire political establishment. Farage's blunt, no-nonsense style appeals to a broad spectrum of voters, from disillusioned Labour supporters to lifelong Conservatives who feel betrayed by broken promises. The message is clear, people are tired of being told to settle for less. They want someone who will fight for them, not for political expediency. The real test, of course, is whether this momentum can translate into political power. Farage himself has hinted at ambitions beyond Reform UK. He's not just angling for influence, he's positioning himself as a serious contender for national leadership. Some dismiss the idea as far-fetched, but the numbers tell a different story. Reform UK's surge in membership and Farage's increasing media presence suggest a growing appetite for his brand of politics. And as disillusionment with the Conservatives deepens and Labour continues to play it safe under Keir Starmer, Farage's boldness could become an even bigger draw. Farage has his sights set on Starmer, and the contrast couldn't be starker. While Starmer plays the centrist game, cautiously avoiding controversy, Farage is going straight for the jugular. He criticizes Labour's vagueness, its lack of clear solutions, and its reliance on platitudes. For voters craving clarity, Farage's directness is a breath of fresh air. He doesn't hedge his bets or speak in riddles. He tells you exactly what he believes, whether you like it or not. The next general election is shaping up to be more than just a contest between parties. It's a battle of ideologies. Farage's vision of a Britain that takes back control, tightens its borders, and prioritizes its citizens stands in stark contrast to the cautious, technocratic approach of Labour. And as Farage continues to dominate public discourse, it's becoming harder to dismiss him as a fringe figure. He's not just a disruptor anymore, he's a serious contender. Love him or hate him, Farage is changing the game. His rise is a wake-up call to a political establishment that has grown complacent, and his message is resonating with a public desperate for change. Whether that translates into electoral success remains to be seen, but one thing is certain, Nigel Farage is no longer on the sidelines. He's in the ring, and he's not pulling any punches.